Mic check, mic check. Hello.
Hello there.
I think that was a really nice space with her, wasn't it?
It was very interesting because it was quite extraordinary. There were a bunch of topics missing, in my opinion, that could have been very beneficial for the upcoming election. But that made it all the more interesting because now I think that gave, especially the media and us as the people who are commenting, a lot of space, a lot of room to discuss what actually happened and then dive into the deeper topics as well. Like, for example, we did not even hear that much about migration, even though that is basically the number one topic for the AfD. They didn't even discuss stuff like media misrepresentation and the GEZ taxes, the media taxes that we're paying in Germany. I think those two topics should have been highlighted a bit more. But it was very interesting to follow, and especially Alice Weidel at the end asking about the mission to go to Mars and then even about God. It was quite surprising. And the reason why I think that's going to be beneficial is because it's going to attract a lot of attention from the media, and the media are going to be excited to write about that in particular. So she kind of poked the bear there and gave them a lot of potential to pick at something in particular. And it's going to be interesting to see how they frame that.
Since we actually have this mantra, which all of us, most of us here on X are repeating, which is "We are the media," can you tell us about the media taxes thing? I know what this is, but I'd like you to explain it.
So they are called GEZ taxes, and it's so I made a video about this at some point a few months ago, saying that we are funding that is basically state-funded media, and it was community noted, or I think it was I'm not sure if the community note went through, but that is the sneaky attempt to by the state to claim that it's not technically state controlled, but yes, it is funded by our taxes. It's like it goes into this radio tax pool. And the reason why this is funded by the state at the end of it all is because the state controls where our taxes are going. Just because they have assigned the taxes to the specific media pool doesn't take the state control out of the equation. Meaning that, yes, at the end of it all, we are paying taxes to the state for the media. And so we have a couple of channels on TV, ARD, ZDF. These are state funded. And that means that there's very little competition from the alternative media, or rather, they don't really have a chance because there's no free market when it comes to the media. And we have what I find the most disgusting, to be honest, is that this ZDF channel, for example, so they deliver the news every night, it's like CNN, and they have a children's branch as well on the children's channel Kika. And they have this news show Logo, and on Logo they show stuff like demonization of Donald Trump, and they even have specific episodes that I have shown on X before of promoting transgenderism and showing how kids are being raised transgender, and that being tax funded, I think is just demonic, and it reminds me a lot of 1984, to be honest.
Jesus Christ. So, like, really, they are starting them off early. I've also heard that actually, this might have been not the most optimal time, I think, to start a space, given that's like, 8 p.m. Isn't that like 8 p.m. in Germany? Isn't that like when everybody goes onto their television sets? And I'm pretty sure like Germans are very habitual people.
Right now, it's it should be 9:30. So the news is already over. The propaganda is done, and now people can recover by going on X and following our space now.
Right, of course. Because like normally what I see as a bit of a problem there would be, Germans are very habitual creatures, and normally at like I think it's 8 p.m. exactly when things like the Tagesschau are hosted, and then everybody's like going on there and watching it to catch up with the latest psyop effectively. It's a bit of a joke, of course, but yeah.
This is so true, but something that I saw recently. It's very funny in a tragic way almost. I made a video about this too. I made a video about basically everything apparently in the recent political landscape of Germany. They removed the "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen" intro. That is like the iconic intro, and everybody knows.
Remember that.
8
Yes.
p.m. You turn on the news and you get the Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tagesschau. They removed the ladies and gentlemen part to be more inclusive. And they alleged that it's to be less old-fashioned and be more like have a more youthful approach and more I guess colloquial in a way. But it's not true. I mean, it's simply because they didn't want to be cancelled for saying ladies and gentlemen, because it doesn't include non-binary fools like 0.000 something percent of the population. I mean, even those are technically ladies and gentlemen. They just don't want to admit to it. And then I saw someone posted a reel or like a short clip of it. Apparently, a few days ago, one of the journalists, one of the reporters on this news show, he almost messed up. He almost messed up, and he almost said "ladies and gentlemen." Then he had to catch himself in the middle of the sentence and just say "welcome to the Tagesschau" without saying the "ladies and gentlemen" part. Yeah, he almost lost his job.
I think even the newspapers conducted a poll whether or not people wanted to keep it. And I think like 90-something% actually wanted to keep the, ladies and gentlemen, as opposed to whatever the new thing is.
Yeah, because we are German. We like everything kind of conservative. That's the funny part. Even though everything is so far left now, we are technically very conservative people. We are just, that's the thing in Germany. Our liberalism is very different, because liberalism in Germany actually still means something more akin to libertarianism in America. So our definition of liberalism is actually more like the classical liberalism, and we would refer to the left actually as the left. However, the general establishment in Germany right now, it's not the liberal anarchy, crazy liberal type of people. It's authoritarian left, and that's why it's so dangerous. Our far left, for example, in the Green Party, these are truly like the eco-Marxists. They are very authoritarian because they are pro-censorship. They are the ones who are predominantly in favor. There are actually polls on this. Who supports the war with Russia, for example? Who supports us sending Taurus missiles to Ukraine to shoot them at Russia, which is crazy because they're extremely destructive weaponry, and that could lead to us being blamed in the end in history for causing World War III. And the ones who are most in favor of this attack, that's the Green Party people. So that's very ironic. It used to be the left, we all thought. It used to be the left who are the anti-war hippies, and now it's more the libertarian thinkers and even the more conservative right-leaning people. So to say something up front, to explain the AfD to everyone a little bit, where I would put them on this political compass graph is actually when it comes to authoritarianism. Well, it's obviously they are on the right and they are not in the absolutely libertarian bracket, but I would put them below the establishment parties, CDU and SPD, when it comes to authoritarianism. They are certainly less authoritarian, a lot less authoritarian than the establishment parties, even the left establishment parties, because they want to ban our free speech.
And we all know from history where that leads.
That is exactly correct. Authoritarianism is the devil to anything that we could classify as democracy, even though they tell us that we're the threat to democracy. But really, they are, by trying to ban our free speech, by trying to impose on our rights to our sovereignty, which ironically, all of this is in our Grundgesetz, our basic law in Germany. And yet our establishment parties are completely denying it and even completely turning the original definition on its head and claiming that they are the ones defending our basic law and trying to ban the AfD, even though they are just absolutely hypocrites. And that's why Alice Weidel, now to get to the space, why she compared Hitler actually to, not compared Hitler to a socialist. He is a socialist, and she said that exactly. He's actually a socialist. He's a national socialist. I would even go a step further and say he was not even just a national socialist, he was an imperialist socialist. Yes, he wanted to impose his national extreme patriotism on other countries. But it's important to mention this imperialist aspect, because nationalism in and of itself is not a bad thing. You could put that in this, you could basically call it a synonym to patriotism, which is not an issue. But nationalism only becomes problematic once you want to impose it on other people and other countries, and basically make everyone else just like yourself, which is not our goal. We just want to maintain our own pride and our own patriotism within Germany. And that is just completely lost at this point. Like, have you seen a German flag in a while? In Germany, certainly not. Maybe somewhere else. I have seen some German flags in America, actually, but not in Germany.
Interesting. This thing that you said, the Grundgesetz, isn't that like something such as the Constitution in America? It's a constitution, effectively,
Yes,
isn't it?
correct.
Yeah.
It's the Constitution.
I was like wondering what else is in there that is currently, I think, being violated to a certain extent. Because if you're going to like violate free speech, that's a huge thing. It's a very, very bad thing, as a matter of fact. And I think the media is extremely complicit in this, because whenever you read any story on there, you can talk to people, and people will tell you the opposite of whatever is written in the news. And this is a global phenomenon. But I think it's even worse in places like Germany, for instance, because there's genuinely this societal pressure on people whenever somebody wants to do something slightly different. So say, for instance, I'm pretty sure that if you have, say, the X app, for instance, you would be, like the society will judge you a little bit, I think, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. You asked about other principles from the Grundgesetz, from our constitution, that are being violated, and I immediately thought of something else that is very important to our constitution, which is do not violate the dignity of a citizen. And they are absolutely violating the dignity of our citizens by witch hunting people for posting memes. And that is just goes completely against our sovereignty and our dignity. For example, raiding people's homes for posting memes. Like, how much more can you humiliate a person? And then Compact magazine, they banned an entire alternative media magazine that I work with myself as well. They just recently said some very nice words about me um, on one of their shows as well, because they were reinstated again after Nancy Faeser is our interior minister, and she tried to ban this Compact magazine, and she did achieve to do so for a certain while, but they won in court because there was nothing unconstitutional about them. Because that was, ironically, that was her claim, that this magazine Compact was unconstitutional, even though they were following the constitution probably a lot better than Nancy Faeser ever could. And they raided the editor-in-chief's home while he was like in his pajamas, which is just, it's so humiliating. I mean, it calls for some epic photos in the mainstream media, but just looking at these photos, it's so dystopian, seeing all these policemen in fully their police clothes, and just looking like they're gonna kill the guy, and taking him out of his house in his pajamas because he's running a magazine. And it's certainly not a Nazi magazine, I can tell you that, because I just yesterday I published another story for them in there, where I wrote about Elon Musk's influence on the exposure of the grooming gangs in the UK, and Tommy Robinson's impact on it as well.
Wow. And as for like the thing I think it's most important here, even we could focus on to a certain extent, is how do you think the German public will receive all of this? Of course, you had the richest man in the world have a conversation with a political candidate, a German political candidate. So how does the German public receive this? And, how many people... Okay, usage of X amongst Germans, I mean, I'm in a different echo chamber, of course. That's how algorithms work, and that's a good thing. I don't really see that many German people on here. But when I do, it's not often positive, and it's unfortunate, but sometimes I have some really positive interactions, which are very nice. Do you think that there's far less people who are German using X than, say, from other countries?
Oh, it's really starting to change, because I'm doing a lot of work myself there. I have a couple of friends who are from Germany, who are in the German alternative media sphere. Like, I basically, once I started getting into the alternative media stuff, and I used to have a YouTube channel, I grew up with them together on YouTube, and I have been asking a lot of these people, please join me on X. This is the platform to be on. And initially, they were very hesitant to do so, understandably, because they didn't quite see the potential. Because Twitter was never popular in Germany, like the original Twitter. It was never popular, not really something that people used for political discussion, because they had the mainstream media. We pay our taxes for the mainstream media, so that's what they listened to. There was no reason to insert your own voice and become the media. But now this has been changing drastically over the past months. And one of my best friends, Unblocked, Miro, he has been starting to post on X, and I promoted some of his posts as well because he started posting a bit internationally. And then every now and then I do sometimes switch my language settings and my location settings to Germany just to see what's going on. And there is an ecosystem that is starting to be formed. And I have multiple friends that I'm constantly in contact with, and I tell them, share more of your work on X. And there's a lot of very positive discussions, sometimes even like very important posts about current migration issues, for example, going viral. And what's the most important part is how Germans are now interacting with the mainstream media and the establishment politicians and the AfD politicians as well on X. So now we can actually see a back and forth between mainstream media and just general citizens who are criticizing them. So that's where the value of X really shines, where we can be the media because they expose the media. That's very beautiful to see that now, slowly but surely, more Germans are joining X. And I think especially now that Elon Musk did this space, I think that's going to inspire even more people to join X, especially because the media are so upset about it. Like you cannot look away. It's like you see that there is something that is apparently for some reason extremely important and you want to be there. People are going to have so much FOMO if they miss out on X. So they will try X. And once you get a taste of freedom, you don't want to go back. All of you know it. There's so many people listening right now, and you're all here because you appreciate the free speech platform and because you like the fact that you have free speech here and you can be the media. And I want to say one thing to everyone who's listening right now. You are indeed the media. Just by supporting creators on X and by posting a comment every now and then, that is crucial. That's very important. You are contributing to the media landscape because all of us creators, we wouldn't have any impact without you. That's the difference between us and the mainstream media, who are taxpayer funded, because taxes are force. That's theft, essentially, meaning that they don't rely on your actual interest in them. We do. So that's why, in my opinion, I was asked this in an interview a couple of days ago, why do you define yourself as a journalist even though you don't have any credentials? Well, does it make you a journalist to have amazing credentials, or does it make you a journalist if the people are listening to you and they see value in your work? I think it should be more of a democratic process. That should be the media, and that's what we are doing. And so every time you interact with someone on X, that's crucial. That's why you should share the links from X to your other friends and family and tell them about X if they are not on X yet. And yeah, thank you very much for your support.
And I think I'd highly encourage as well is to get premium, because that will expand your reach as well. Like actually, it's great because if you go onto X, you have an international voice, I think, as well. If you look at something like Spaces, for instance, this is an amazing function which is extremely international. It's not like really tied to anything that's algorithmic. So it's like normally when you post something, it's sorted by an algorithm, which of course, is good because that is what allows for good content curation in a system, especially like if you want to take out spam and various things that people may not be interested in. It's very subjective, whatever an interest is. So algorithms sort very well, and that's an amazing thing. With Spaces, the thing is, you see these pop up on your feed, and you get to join them, and it is separate from how algorithms work. For me, for instance, the only reason why I grew as much as I did was because of Spaces, and because Spaces are separate from the algorithms. So it's a very good communication tool, in my opinion. It's not something like people would make a lot of money with. It's a great thing, I think, for podcasts, especially if you want to do it live. You can post it and, turn it into clips and all, and that's then the content which you could even get money from, because you can't get monetized here. But realistically, the live unfiltered experience of spaces on here is very, very good. And I'd actually encourage more Germans to come here, and perhaps one day we could have a bit of a conversation on spaces, not a political discussion, but a just normal personal discussion. I think those are even the best. Right now we're kind of like focusing a little bit more political because that's the crux of the space. But realistically, I think we could also at some point have a more, personal conversation where, Germans talk about, what it is like to be German in today's Germany. So I think that would be very nice.
I think that's very realistic. We could easily organize such a space. I do know that right now, possibly, still, probably, some of my friends are already organizing some spaces in the German sphere as like an after space. I was interested in hosting something like this internationally because that's usually my type of content as well. But I did tune into some of their spaces, and I think they should have the courage to join us, the international community, a bit more, which is why I started doing this international content. I'm 100% German, meaning that I basically taught myself English. I mean, I learned English in school, but I mostly just got it from, I don't know, reading and watching shows and videos, movies. And I just became interested in basically taking our German culture, our German patriotism, and our German politics, and raising not just awareness for it, but also gaining your interest for it by sharing it in the international sphere. Because I do see a lot of value in what German culture can bring to the world, just in the same way as I am now learning a lot from, for example, American culture. And I'm so inspired by the American dream and by the principles of freedom, by the First and Second Amendment. Yes, I even went to a shooting range and I tested out some guns, and I can confirm that it's a very empowering feeling. So I'm not saying that we're very close to getting the Second Amendment in Germany. Probably not. But it's just amazing to experience these different cultures. And that's truly what diversity should be, this kind of diversity, where we can experience different cultures in different countries. But I don't need different cultures just being imposed on us, and especially not from Middle East or Africa, somewhere that I did not invite into my country, that was simply forced on us because the government told us that we need to invite them because they're refugees and escaping from horrors in their own countries. I believe we have experienced more horrors as a consequence of them coming into Germany than they would have experienced in their own country. And if anything, it was possibly self-induced.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember when the migrant crisis started. I was relatively young at the time, but, I was very well aware of what was happening. It was very crazy to see. And I mean, look, how would you prove that any of these people are actually refugees? They could just take their passport, throw it away, go in and say, oh, I lost my passport, I did all this. By the way, I come from this country over here. There you go. Now you get a German passport, a little bit of money, accommodation, all other kinds of stuff. And there you go. Now you just live there on the dime of the people. I can see how that may rub people the wrong way, in my opinion. It was very interesting to see how that all expanded and how quickly it did as well. And I mean, look at what's recently happened with the Christmas market and what happened with, Sylvester, they call it Sylvester New Year's, where you had people play around with fireworks as if they were weapons, shooting them in people's living rooms. That's not okay. And I'm pretty sure you know exactly who I'm talking about. There was like one specific clip of someone who had like one of these somewhat normal fireworks. And I got to tell you, man, that aim had a lot of skill. They aimed it directly into someone's fucking living room. And I think there was a child in there as well. So, damn.
That sounds terrible. I also think, at what point in your life, that would be interesting to know, I think, for a lot of people, at what point in your life did you realize that something shady was going on with the migration crisis?
Well, like pretty much immediately, because I saw all of that. I saw all of that happening. I was in various countries. I was always very international, not really in Germany specifically, but you could see that something didn't make any sense. Someone like myself
But do you
recognizes patterns.
define the start of the migration crisis as the era of like 2015, Angela Merkel?
Yes, I would definitely think so, in my opinion.
Okay.
That's where it all started. It was a cascade from then on. That was like, it started with Germany, and you kind of see everything like expand outwards from there. I think that was the ground zero event, in my opinion.
I think
Yes, I think so too. Let me just say this. I have exactly the same experience, and this is just very interesting now for me to see from someone who wasn't immediately within Germany constantly, because obviously for me the center of my life at 15 years old was Germany. But yeah, I always thought the entire migration crisis, I think that was deliberately started in Germany in 2015 under Angela Merkel. And I think that Angela Merkel was largely influenced by Soros. And she had her advisors there, and potentially also maybe she had some influence from her past time in East Germany, socialism, if we remember that, where she came from. And she hijacked the CDU party, which was formerly the more conservative party, which is why then the AfD had to rise and form a new opposition party. Because before all of this happened, the two main parties in Germany, the two main establishment parties were the SPD, which is the far left establishment party, and that is our previous government, the Olaf Scholz guy, or Olaf Schietz, as Elon Musk called him at some point, or Schitz. Yeah. So he is from the far left establishment party, SPD, and he formed a coalition with the Green Party. But here's a big problem. Angela Merkel from the allegedly conservative party, she also formed a coalition with the Green Party. And the Green Party, as I've mentioned before in this space, they are the far left eco-Marxist lunatics who are also very authoritarian, who want to go to war with Russia, and they breed the Antifa people. They are very famous for being the most Antifa, having the highest Antifa rate and affinity for their principles. They're actually quite proud of it. So there have been multiple Green Party politicians who openly support Antifa. And no, Joe Biden is not just an idea. I can verify that because I have been attacked by Antifa multiple times. Because in my hometown, Antifa is actually quite strong. Possibly one of the most Antifa heavy places in Germany. And it's not fun to deal with, which is why I'm very aware how dangerous the Green Party members can be. And something else that you should know is that there's always these allegations against the AfD that they are the Nazi party, even though that is completely in opposition to any of their principles. And as you may have now heard in the space with Alice Weidel, she actually strongly supports the Jews. And she correctly says that Jews are the most protected under the AfD because they are just being abused by the other parties and just thrown in front of the wolves, the Islamists, to be dissected and just attacked in the worst ways, way worse than any right-wing Nazi ever could in Germany, because they simply don't have any power under the law or just generally. There's not a big underground Nazi movement in Germany. I can confirm that. And so all these allegations against the AfD exist, that there's Nazis in the party, which is not true. And if there's Nazis out there in Germany who support the AfD, then they simply see something very different in the AfD from what they are actually proclaiming, and they may just be mentally ill and delusional. Sorry about that. You're not getting what you're seeking in the AfD if you think that you will get Nazi ideology. But the Green Party is actually well known, and you can look this up, for having pedophiles in their party. And that pedophilia was actually around the 80s, I think, a strongly supported ideological part of their agenda. So they wanted to actually politically advocate for lessening the punishments for pedophilia. So how do we feel about that? We like to have a discussion about it, potentially. And then you just have to look at when it comes to election interference, right? Elon Musk is interfering in the elections now. And now there are even allegations that he's not supposed to do that because it's basically equivalent to funding the AfD. They seriously want to claim that he's basically funding them and giving them money. And so the AfD may have to pay large fines for it. It's absolutely delusional because meanwhile, George Soros and Bill Gates are investing so much in the European politics to basically destroy us from the inside. largely George Soros. I still have a video planned on this, which is potentially going to come tomorrow, to just show you how much George Soros has actually influenced Germany in particular, because that's very important to crystallize out of his entire influence. It's been mostly Germany, because he explicitly said that Germany is the most important country in our European crisis in a way, and he calls this. He refers to this as a crisis for himself as well, because he sees the right-wing uprising and he says that the AfD is the greatest threat, whereas he says that the Green Party is the only hope for Europe. So that's where the cycle closes.
Wow. By the way, I just saw a very interesting reply here by El Abadi. He said, when I was in Germany last year, I was able to get by just by speaking Arabic, which is horrifying. Last year in Wiesbaden, I came across an AfD rally. I spoke to many of, he says may, but many of them, and very respectful people. It tags us, of course, and then says only AfD will be able to save Germany. So there's a clip there. Thought that was an interesting reply from one of my subscribers, actually.
That is indeed quite interesting. Yeah, horrifying to think about. It's true that there's a lot of, whenever you see any signals, any symbols, something outside, maybe at the bus stop, for example, you will usually get some kind of Arabic translation. I think that is quite accurate, sadly, because it shouldn't be that way. In America, you see that a lot with Spanish, which is far from as bad as it is in Germany. So yeah, you will get English translations, but I think Arabic translations may be even more common than English translations, which is funny almost.
Fascinating. I'm looking at a lot of the responses here. It's many, many. Yeah, I know I sound very similar to him. I am not Elon. I'm just going to say this many, many times. A good assertion, by the way. I speak more fluently. Yes, this is true, because I do a lot of public speaking. I host spaces every single day, usually a lot later than now. This is an exception that we're making, because I usually host a show that's called The Conversation. We host it at what is 7 p.m. Central Time, which is US time, of course. So if you know what Central Time is, you can look it up and translate it to wherever your time zone is. So yeah, I host those every single day, and we just discuss tech. This is kind of like outside of my niche to talk about something that is relatively political in nature. I'm more so focused on things that are, tech economy, because I believe that that is more relevant. But, in cases like these, this is the intersect between this realm and the political realm. And this intersect is very important because this will define where, say, tech and economy itself goes. Because, of course, political parties directly intersect with that, and their policies will define what happens in the future. By the way, on immigration, how does Germany feel on? Of course, illegal immigrants. I'm pretty sure many people have advocated for those to, removed from the country. Do they advocate? Does anyone in Germany advocate for, say, the removal of the people who are, allegedly there because of asylum, even though you can't really prove it?
It's very difficult to determine. So the big problem that we're facing right now is that we already have so many people in the country. So it is going to be extremely difficult to determine who's going to be deported and who not. But the truth of the matter is that most likely you are going to have to deport something like 80% of the people, just morally speaking, looking at their record of why they came to Germany. And now that the war in Syria has allegedly been ended, even though now the actual people who are going to flee are going to be the Christians, and we would welcome them into our Christian nation. Or the Muslims who are in Germany who came from Syria, well, yeah, they can return to their country. I think that shouldn't be a problem, even though the German media already started claiming that we're going to lose so many skilled workers. And someone actually did a very interesting, very insightful analysis into the numbers, into the data. How bad would it be for Germany's economy if all the Syrian doctors, for example, left us? Because that was a particular point that a lot of people made. What would happen if we lost all the Syrian doctors? And we would actually be fine, it turns out. Actually, it would be beneficial if all of them left, because just the net positive that these Syrian refugees, alleged refugees, give to our country is actually it's just a fantasy. It's not true. It's more of a net negative. And a lot of these people allegedly do actually want to leave Germany. But many of them, I think, have become quite comfortable, especially with the welfare system. So the only people who would want to leave Germany again are probably the ones who are tired of Germany's system because they themselves got messed with by the German system. Meanwhile, the only ones who want to stay are the ones who can rest and be comfortable in our welfare system, which is definitely not how it should be.
I think if there ever is anything close to deportation on the table there, if I were to make a suggestion, I would not say just kind of do it en masse. That would be very problematic. I would say do it for only the criminals. So like if somebody causes, chaos or is somebody causes a lot of crime, and they are in fact like a asylum seeker or somebody immigrated there in this sense, like I think specifically asylum seeker, that you can't do that. You're a guest in that country effectively. You cannot do this. You cannot destroy the country. So I think anyone who's like a criminal and who contributes to criminal activity in whatever shape or form, that could be someone you'd want to have removed from the country, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. I don't want anyone to take it too seriously, of course.
Yeah, I think that's a very hot take. No criminals in Germany. That might be a bit too controversial.
No, of course not. No, I don't mean like just anyone. I mean specifically for the people that were brought in as under asylum. That would be something. It was like you would want to remove the people who cause a lot of chaos.
No, that's absolutely true. I was just kidding. I'm just saying, yeah.
I wasn't doing that.
It reminded me of something. It reminded me of something almost that the CDU the CDU guy said. The CDU chancellor candidate. He said the CDU is going to make sure that we will deport people who commit crimes more than twice. I think. So you're allowed to commit one crime, but then after the second you go home. That is very helpful and beneficial to Germany, apparently. I mean, if you come to Germany, you're not allowed to violate the law. Like, you're not allowed to violate the law, period. But especially if you're not from here, the audacity you have to do that. You should leave immediately. But this is exactly why we had this terrorist who attacked the Christmas market in Magdeburg. Even though he was supposed to be extradited upon request from Saudi Arabia multiple times, he had a very intense criminal record, multiple criminal acts that had already been recorded, and the overly bureaucratic system in Germany did nothing about it because simply our bureaucracy failed. And that's not going to change under anyone but the AfD. And we know this because the only party that is so basically, if you don't vote for the AfD, but you want some kind of change from our last far left government, then you're probably going to vote for the CDU. So that's the former Merkel party, the allegedly conservative party. But there's so many issues with them because Friedrich Merz, the chancellor candidate, he has announced, first of all, he wants EU regulations, now even on Meta, Facebook, because now Mark Zuckerberg has come out and said that he wants to remove the fact checkers. And he is in favor of potentially banning X. The Green Party guy is in favor of banning X too. That's very obvious. So who are you going to vote for? Do you want to have your free speech banned? This guy, like all of them, everybody but the AfD, they want to go to war with Russia. They are in favor of sending these Taurus missiles there. So the only party you can vote for if you're anti-war and pro-free speech is the AfD. It's very clear. It's very simple. So you cannot trick yourself into thinking that you can vote for some kind of AfD light so you don't get stigmatized as a Nazi. No, you have to be courageous. Just be brave for once and say, I don't give a crap about what the media has to say about the AfD. It doesn't affect me, but it's going to affect my entire country and my existence and my family and my friends if we don't vote for the AfD, and especially my children. What is the future of Germany if we destroy our country with eco-Marxism? Then it's just going to be oppression. You're not allowed to criticize the government anymore, and you cannot even pay for your groceries. Especially, you cannot pay for the heating in the winter because we are so energy reliant on what? On alternative energy sources, on windmills. That's what our current Green Party minister and previous vice chancellor says, who's also the chancellor candidate now for the Green Party, he said in November he noticed that the windmills weren't very effective because it turns out in November there's not a lot of wind in Germany. So would you like to know what he suggested? He said that the way we can fix this is we just need more windmills.
Oh my God.
More windmills, so that's how we get more energy. He's an absolute genius. I mean, he doesn't have any background in economics, even though he was our economic minister. Alice Weidel has a very, very extensive background in economics and a doctor PhD title. And he does have some credentials. So I don't want to be too mean about him because he's actually a children's book author. Not a good one, as the media, even the mainstream media, have pointed out, but he's a children's book author. And he's our economic minister.
Wow. We need more windmill. Oh my God.
Do you understand now why we are in a bad place in Germany?
You need more nuclear power plants, not more windmills. Besides, by the way, for anyone who's interested in this, I want you to actually look at the economics of wind energy. Wind energy is probably the worst of the renewable energies, like probably the absolute worst of the renewable energies, because it costs way too much to produce. They are over-engineered. They disturb and to an extent destroy the environment in which they're placed. They cause psychological issues, not only in animals, but also humans. They look absolutely fucking ugly. And when the wind is a little bit too high, they basically disintegrate. Oh, and by the way, you have to replace the blades every now and then. And guess what? You can't recycle the blades. And they cost
And they
millions.
kill the birds.
That's what I said with environmental destruction. But if you want something that actually is quite good for an environment like that, it may not necessarily be renewable, but is the safest, densest energy that you can get, that's nuclear. I mean, in Germany, the solar is not really going to work. This is something that I myself personally use. Like, I'm a person that actually uses renewable energy. So I actually know what I'm talking about. So like maybe hydropower, you could do this in Germany as well. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of water sources. That could actually work. It's a very nice form of renewable energy. Hydropower is great. I like it. But it's either that, geothermal, or it's nuclear. You choose. Wind? Absolutely not. Complete disaster. Bullshit. Anyone who's trying to sell you on this has no clue of what they speak. And if they really are trying to sell you this with numbers and all attached, they probably have a stake in it.
That's a good point. They do. BlackRock. They're funded by BlackRock. And especially Friedrich Merz, the CDU chancellor guy. But the same goes for the Green Party. Oh, and something that should be mentioned as well about the nuclear power plants, actually. There was a big scandal that was uncovered by an alternative media magazine. They asked to get some insights into the files that were used by our minister for our green economics economic minister Habeck. They wanted to get insight into these files that were released or that were not released, but that were discussed when they shut down the nuclear plants, because they alleged that it would be too dangerous to have these nuclear plants, that nuclear power was dangerous. And they had a science team look into this and evaluate how dangerous these nuclear power plants were. And then eventually they released a statement on it and decided we need to shut them down. But then this alternative media magazine demanded that they could look into the actual protocols from the scientists that were hired to look into this. And it actually turns out that the Green Party completely misconstrued their claims and turned everything upside down, so that in the end they could claim that they were too dangerous, even though that was the complete opposite of what the scientists found. So they lied about everything, but the scandal didn't blow up enough to actually make people aware of how bad it was. We were lied to from start to finish. I mean, everybody with a brain, everybody who knows anything about nuclear power could have known this, but it was even officially the Green Party lied to us. So just destroying our nuclear power plants, which destroyed our energy independence, all of this is based on a lie. And this guy is still running for chancellor now. And he has an X account. people are roasting him all the time because he is the one who's in favor of banning X. And then he decided to suddenly come back on X and use it for his campaign. And he sat down at a kitchen table. It's actually a meme in Germany now. He sat down at a kitchen table, the famous video of Robert Habeck at the kitchen table, and asked the citizens, what do they want from him? What are your
Oh
requests for
boy.
him? He just wants to have a casual chat with you. He's like the Kamala Harris of Germany. Yeah.
That's a
But
good one.
male,
That's a good
I
one. Kamala
think,
Harris, Germany.
potentially. At this point, I'm not sure anymore because he certainly has the vibes of a very weak female.
Did you see when they was trying to break the bottle of champagne over this? I think it was a new ship or something. Like normally when when you open up a new piece of infrastructure or you have like a new ship, you take like a bottle of champagne and you like smash it against whatever the infrastructure would be. And I think they tried to do that there and he couldn't do it. He like tried to do it multiple times, and then even the bottle flew out. Did you see that? That was fucking hilarious.
I actually didn't see that. Do you maybe have the clip of that?
I'll send you a clip. Hang on, let me actually get that. I think I might have it somewhere. Yeah. Okay, let's see. I think it was
Give me a second because I'm seeing now that Alice Weidel just posted the space in video form. That's actually
nice.
adorable. And I'm going to post our after space underneath. Okay, so maybe we get some Germans in. Okay, would be nice to get some Germans as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Would be nice. Let me find it. It's not in there. I deal with a lot of inbound information, so it's going to be a bit until I find it. God, where is it now? Ah, found it. I'll send it to you on X. There you go. That.
Okay, thank you. I'll have a look at it. And then maybe if you want to, we can maybe discuss the actual space that we witnessed between Elon and Alice Weidel. I would like to hear what you think about it too.
I mean, my opinions are relatively indifferent. I think it was a very good space. That's one thing that I can say. There's nothing in particular that, is something that I could personally pick apart. I just liked all of it. So I'm just kind of sitting there and observing it, and it was really nice. It was a good discussion. You were right, there could be more of a focus on immigration, I suppose, but realistically speaking, I don't think that that was really something that would have been very constructive for the space. I think that what they dealt with was just to kind of have a conversation. Normally what happens is when you have a conversation is they want to turn it into a political debate. And I think that is very destructive in a sense, because I think what is most important is when you have, say, a person that is going to be a leader of anything, be it a company, a country, anything at all, you'd want to know what kind of person they are. And the best way to know what kind of person they are is to basically have a conversation with them. And not just necessarily something about policy, but kind of figure out who they are, which I believe is what the space was for, in a sense. Even with Donald Trump, if you remember, that space was incredible. I think that was something that really showed the personality of Donald Trump and the chemistry that could have been had with, Elon and Trump. So everybody knew, okay, this is what the potential would be like. And of course, now you get to see what the execution of that is. And I think it's very, very good.
I agree with you. I do have a couple of criticisms about this space and also about her mannerisms and behavior. I think it's due to her being uncomfortable in the English language, which is why I was wondering for quite a while, how are they going to manage this? Because I am aware that English is clearly not her first language, and I knew it was going to become a bit of a problem to seriously convey how she would act in the German language, because the way I know her from interviews and from speeches, she is very different. She's way more eloquent, way more professional, and it's absolutely fine. I'm not saying that she did a bad job. She seriously did not, but it was very obvious that she was quite nervous, and she did not. I didn't feel like she prepared a lot of like questions in advance, and I didn't hear any critical takes. I think she missed a few chances to convey big messages for Germany in particular, because there's a lot that you would not be aware of as an international listener, which people in Germany criticize the AfD for. And the people that we want to aim at are the people who are just on the fence between AfD and CDU. So talking about, for example, why the AfD is not a Nazi party, I mean, yeah, it was very important to emphasize the support of the Jewish community, that's for sure. But to make that the only point of criticism against the AfD would be incorrect. And I think it would have been better to discuss some more topics that are actually critical, potentially even for someone like Elon Musk, where he may disagree with Alice Weidel on some particular things, or maybe where they could actually have a discussion on topics. And solar energy and versus fossil fuels, that's what they discussed initially. I think that's not too interesting for most people in Germany at this point. What would have been more interesting would be to get into the specifics of deportations, or what we usually call it in Germany is remigration, or potentially the migration question in general. How do we handle migration? How would the AfD formulate a migration law? That is something that I would have loved to ask. And Elon also announced before the space that people would be allowed to ask questions, which didn't seem to happen in the end. I think that would have been valuable as well. So that would have been one question that I would like to ask myself, because I do have some access to specific members of the AfD, but not Alice Weidel herself. I had not spoken, or have never spoken, to Alice Weidel myself. I initiated the space. Indeed, I organized this in private, basically. But I just made sure that the contact would be established from other contacts that I have between Alice Weidel and Elon Musk. So yeah, I did initiate it kind of from the inside, but I did not get the contact to Alice Weidel myself. So I would have loved to ask her some questions as well. And I did find it very interesting that she addressed the school system, because that reflects my own experience. And I felt very trapped in school. I felt like they were trying to numb my mind, and I had to escape by doing my own projects and participating in science competitions, for example, which made it fun for me. It was a good experience, simply because I rarely showed up in school, and then I just aced my exams and it was fine, basically. But I was a very messy student too, probably ADHD related or something. I lacked all kinds of organization because I didn't see the point in it. Just being handed out all these pamphlets that had no meaning to me, and then I had to organize them somewhere. So I didn't, and then every couple of months they would ask us for our homework, not just homework, but our entire the entire work from the past half year. And so I would have to scramble everything together, write some essays completely from scratch again, so I could hand something in. And it's just, everything felt so meaningless and useless. So I think it's very important that they touched on the topic of education. And I think that's something that Elon found value in as well, because he obviously cares about the education of children and knowledge and furthering our information and knowledge in general. What they could have also discussed is maybe, for example, the parallels between the grooming gangs in the UK and what happened in Germany. That's another migration problem. They could have touched on the topic of the 2016 New Year's Eve in Germany, when hundreds of women were raped within a single night. And then afterwards, the mainstream media were at first dead silent, and then they slowly started revealing that it was 10 Germans who did this. 10 Germans. Oh, very interesting. And then just recently, they published the list of names. And if you just take one look at the list, you can realize, you can identify all these names like Mohammed. And yeah, you know immediately that these names sound rather exotic and not particularly German. So you know exactly that these crimes were predominantly committed by migrants just within a single night. But these crime statistics have skyrocketed at this point. It's sad for me to even talk about. But over the years, it got so bad that now even our Interior Minister, Nancy Faeser, who's far left authoritarian, who wants us to censor people and throw them in jail for being Islamophobic and xenophobic, even she had to admit recently on mainstream TV that integration has failed. Multiculturalism has failed. So, yeah, what do we do now? Closing the borders, it's kind of too late. We need to do something about it. And now we are also aware that we have Islamists in our country who are willing to destroy the country, who are willing to commit terrorist attacks, who threatened to blow up our Christmas markets. And one of them did. And we can argue about whether or not he was an Islamist, but he was not the only one. This is what most people are not aware of, but the police barely prevented multiple potential attacks from Islamists. I've made it public about at least 5 incidences where they found potential attackers who acted extremely suspiciously. There was a lot of evidence of them planning attacks in the Christmas markets. And yeah, that's just the Christmas markets. It doesn't end there. It's not going to end. It doesn't end until we enforce these deportations. And you can just vote for these establishment parties again and just hope that nothing happens. You can just ignore it as long as nothing happens, and then just something blows up again. Someone gets killed, and then you are shocked for maybe 5 minutes, and then you go back to work, to your 9 to 5. Then you watch the "Good evening, not ladies and gentlemen. Here is the Tagesschau." You go back to bed, you wake up the next morning, and you go back to your general routine. That's usually how Germans act. But I think it's time for us to step out of that routine and actually make a change and actually be the change. You have to be the change. And the way you do that is by not just voting. We are far from just having an impact by just voting anymore, because the system has been hijacked um, by these authoritarian, tyrannical creatures, and they want to form a big coalition against the AfD, meaning that they will completely overrule the AfD, even if the AfD becomes the most popular party. And so what we can do and what we have to do is we have to entirely replace the media. And my hope and my goal, I want to say my goal for 2025 is for us to become so powerful as the replacement of the media that we inspire the people to start an uprising against these media taxes, so that we abolish them in the end, and that we actually get a fair chance at competing against the establishment media, because it's no longer taxpayer funded. And then at that point, it's only a matter of time until the establishment collapses. Because what I see now is, in the upcoming election, our chance is to create a very strong opposition AfD, but not government AfD. And then that's fine. In my opinion, that's probably better than having them in the government, because they cannot undo what years and years of Angela Merkel and all the other systemic creatures have done and have changed in our system. They don't have the power, just by being in the government, to change everything, sadly. But by them being in the opposition, the government is going to fail, and people are going to be extremely upset because they voted for change, but they're not going to get change, because they are going to vote for a big coalition, which is led by the CDU, but they have to form a coalition with the SPD, which is the far left again, even though this government just collapsed. So they just get the same government again. So they will be so upset that after possibly just a few months, they will say, you know what? This is not why we had our last government collapse. We wanted something different. This is exactly the same bullshit. I did not vote for this. I don't want to vote for this. I would like to take my vote back and vote for someone else, the AfD. And so ideally, maybe the next government will collapse as well. And that can only happen if the media, if we, the media, become strong enough and powerful enough in our voices that we can emphasize the importance of truth and the importance of sovereignty and of courage. And that's how we win in the end. That's the goal. That's my plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like I should post something just for fun. It's like, say we are the media, but it was like wir sind die Medien, because that's what it is. Yeah. I mean, look, if you with something like legacy media, you see that everything is being portrayed as something that it really is not. But by the way, kind of to get back on the criticisms. Hang on, I'm looking at through some of the. I'm starting to see why it's a little bit difficult to take all the questions because there are quite a lot of them being asked all at the same time. Let's see. So, oh my God, so much.
No problem. I'm currently sending this live space to some mainstream media, actually, because I've been getting so many mainstream media requests lately, and they want to do interviews with me, and I'm sending this to a journalist if he's potentially interested in hearing some of our takes, because I think it's good for them to see how X operates and how we are replacing the media. And don't worry, anyone, like they're not spying on us. It's just one journalist.
Oh no, they're always spying. They're always spying. Like, yeah, for me, whenever I post something, I always ask myself one fundamental question: would this look good on print? Like, would this would this look good in print? I always ask myself this every single time before I post something because I know that somebody out there is looking at my posts like with this squinted eye, like, can we turn this into something? So whenever I post anything, I do exactly that.
That's very funny because I had this feeling a few days ago.
But there always
Exactly what
is.
I
Once
anticipated.
you reach a certain size, there's always somebody that is listening. I know this for a fact. There
It's so
has to be
true.
because you
It's
never
so
know if
true.
you're going to stumble across a very juicy story, especially with someone like myself, someone like yourself. It's a thing where you reach critical mass and it becomes a story. If it's too repetitive, then nobody will write about it. But if it's something that you could print about, then yes. Even this space, I think, would be something that you could have. Something you could turn this into something. Actually, if you were to write an article about something, you could turn this into something.
This is why I actually requested that you record the space, because I think there's going to be some nuggets that we can maybe even post afterwards. To just add some additional context about the space, for example. But it's funny that you mentioned this because I had this exact experience when I woke up this morning. I was kind of shocked, but in a humorous way, because a few days ago, I was asked by the Junge Freiheit, which is a German alternative media magazine. They are very friendly, very nice, and the AfD often does interviews with them as well. They interviewed me, and the initial question they asked me, and they used this in the title as well, was, "Are you the Musk whisperer?" And
Oh my
I could have
God,
in that moment. I could, yeah. You get it because you are literally Elon Musk. They call you actual Elon Musk.
that is
So you get
ridiculous.
what it's
Seriously, that
so
is
you get what
ridiculous.
it's like when they put these labels on you. You get what it feels like, right? And in that moment, I was like, that reminds me a lot of when I was called the anti-Greta by the Spiegel in 2020. So now I'm the Musk
Anti-Greta.
whisperer. Yes, I was called the anti-Greta Thunberg. That was my big thing. You can, if you look up anti-Greta
That's actually
on
pretty good.
Google,
That's
you'll
that's
find
actually not
me.
bad. That's actually pretty good.
Yes,
Who
it's
the
not
fuck wants
bad,
to be
which
Greta
is why I
Thunberg? It's
took it for
horrible.
myself, which is why I took it as my brand. The Spiegel called me that to defame me. Then I was like, all right, if you're going to call me anti-Greta, that's my thing now.
People don't
So if
understand.
you
There's
look
a
up
lot
anti-Greta
more.
now, there's going to be my Wikipedia page and my entire, like everything's about me.
People
It's
don't
funny.
understand. There's a
So
lot more
now you're
people
going to
that
get the
dislike
same for
her.
the Musk whisperer.
There's like many more,
Yeah.
like large multiple of people that actually dislike Greta as opposed to like, because everybody, like, look, if you're going to
True.
post that out there
Especially
and say, oh, wow,
now.
everybody
She
likes her.
canceled
No,
herself.
everybody hates this person for various many reasons. Like, look, the movements that this individual has created has caused economic instability. Like that's not something that anybody likes. Once you go to work, like I mean, so many people who don't actually go to work, they don't understand what the world looks like, and that's why I always have these weird protests on university campuses because these people haven't actually been introduced into the real world. But once you do get introduced into the real world, you start to see what the truth is like, and you're like, fuck this. I need to get to work. I'm going to be late to work. I'm not going to get paid properly. just because somebody wants to make some point that doesn't even affect me. So why are we listening to this person? I think that's kind of like where it goes. Once you start to have economic pressure as a result of something that is completely illogical, people are going to have a problem with it. That's why I think, a lot of people actually grew to dislike Greta Thunberg, is that there's a large multiple. Even now, it's way worse than it has ever been, of course, but even at her peak, there were, I think, many more, like a large multiple of people that disliked her as opposed to actually liking her. Because, this person is a walking contradiction.
Yes, this is true. But yeah, coming back to the to the Musk Whisperer interview, they are very friendly, right? So I could have answered anything, and they wouldn't have taken me out of context or anything. But I was thinking in that moment, okay, I can do one out of two things. I either say no, obviously I'm not like the Musk Whisperer, I'm something else. I could have
It
used
doesn't make
something
any
else,
sense.
or
Like
I just
nobody is a Musk whisperer. This is
that's
Elon is a
true,
person. It's funny that people
right?
objectify him. So he's a person. You can have a communication with him. Actually, as a matter of
He's a
fact, you can
horse,
have more communication with
like an
him than
animal.
many other people in that type of position.
Ridiculous. Yes,
Like he's
exactly.
not an
And
animal.
so
Like
I thought, okay, I'm going to explain that exactly my position on it. And I said precisely, that is a very interesting term, just for the mere fact that I have like a good political connection with him, that we're on the same wavelength when it comes to a lot of topics, and even beyond politics. Like I'm very inspired. Obviously, my work is inspired by a lot of what he is doing. And I think it's great what he's doing. And yeah, he established contact with me initially about the AfD, and he followed a lot of my work with regards to German politics, because I became like the German international voice for German politics. Then I ended my answer with, so by all means, if you're gonna call me the Musk whisperer, with a smirk, I said that literally, comma, with a smirk, comma, then I'm the Musk whisperer.
that is
So I said that
ridiculous.
definitely ironically, right? And today I woke up and I see in every mainstream media headline, she is the self-proclaimed Musk whisperer.
Oh my
Musk
God.
whisperer. Insane. It was the Welt. You saw that
So they
recently,
don't
Welt had
understand
this.
sarcasm. Oh wow, that is
They
amazing.
don't.
That
They
is
don't. It was
amazing.
incredible. It was beautiful. And I was like, they took the bait. They took the bait. I placed it there and they took it.
That is incredible. That is actually fucking incredible. Wow. Wow.
In that moment when I thought, okay, I'm saying the sentence now, by all means, with a smirk, I am the Musk whisperer now.
That is
And I
ridiculous.
knew they
Wow.
would take it.
Dude, that must be so embarrassing for them. Like the amount of stuff that they've written, which is basically untrue. Like, wow, they take everything literally. And I'm supposed to be the autistic person. Like, hello? How's this like, what is this? It's just funny.
Yeah, you are literally Elon Musk. And they still say this in the
That
media.
is ridiculous.
I
I mean, it's
mean,
so stupid.
it
There's so
doesn't
much
take
proof.
that much research to find out.
Exactly. I mean, there's so much proof to the contrary, that I am in fact not Elon Musk. So there's so much proof. We've literally spoken on Spaces. We've spoken over each other. We sound a little bit different. We talk about relatively the same things, but I mean, you can see the differences if you were just if you were to just listen. Even here, like the stuff that I talk about, the way that I eat is somewhat different as well. Like there are differences. You can find them. You just have to pay attention. I mean,
To
look, I
be
literally
fair,
put the evidence out
to
there.
be fair, Adrian, someone who can launch SpaceX and take care of X and be involved in like politics all across the world and have Tesla. He has all this stuff going on and like 12 kids. Someone like that could probably pull something so crazy that he invents an entire personality.
It doesn't make any
and
sense.
just
Like,
makes
if he
this huge scam out of it.
exactly. I mean, if
It
you
would
wanted to,
sound like something he would do, but I think he can't be bothered to
I mean,
do
that's
that
just,
much.
yeah. I mean,
He
that
has
just
more
doesn't make
important
any
stuff to
sense
do.
because look.
No, it
The problem
doesn't.
is, if you wanted to do something like this, you would have to hide it. So how stupid would it be to have like the world's most recognizable voice and then go onto Spaces and scale Spaces as a thing? That is extremely counterintuitive, but they genuinely believe Elon to be stupid, and so they basically say, oh, wow, that's 100% on brand. It's like, it's not. There's no way.
There's actually one very easy way to realize why this allegation of you being Elon Musk is stupid, because everything he does, literally everything he does, like every way he involves himself with politics, and every company that he has, he always has a greater purpose in mind, which is to bring humanity to Mars, to make us interstellar, and to help us as humanity thrive. Yes, when he supports the AfD in Germany, the ultimate goal is to take us all to Mars, because you can't do that when our society is completely messed up and the West is falling. That's why he wants the West to thrive, because he wants to take us into the future. And I don't think him posing as some kind of Adrian Dittmann guy who's
That is
who's
not
actually him
productive at
is
all.
going to help us
Yeah,
in some way.
absolutely not. No,
No offense.
no.
But I think you're contributing way more to society by being actual Adrian Dittmann and just being yourself.
I mean, there's one of my friends is he's a bit of a stock trader. He's a fun dude. He's called Stock Talks Weekly. That's his thing. He's a very very good guy. And he often says, like, man, it's very disingenuous because you're just saying that guy is like a copy. You know, it's like this is his own. This is like a personality. This is a different personality, and it's funny and it's a great thing to have a communication with. Like that's kind of how he put it once. I had like multiple spaces with him because we often do Tesla focused stuff as well. And so he jumped in. We had a great communication. It was like, oh man, all these stupid people in my DM saying this guy is an Elon gatekeeper. I'm like, no. It's like, why would anyone do that? No, everybody still thought it at the time, but there's so much evidence. Like you can Google, okay, it's not Google, you can search on my profile. There's like this function that you have on mobile. Just search it. You can see to whom it may concern. I'm not Elon. Just search that, and then you'll find a thread with all the evidence, effectively, right? All of the evidence that proves to the contrary. You'll find it, it's there. And if that doesn't convince you, then that's an intelligence problem. I hate to be this blunt, but that's an intelligence problem. And basically a global litmus test to a certain extent, you can really see what the bell curve looks like. And the physical representation of that. It's kind of funny.
Shall we have some more people on? I think there's a couple of people who are requesting to speak, and maybe we can have some questions, some additional
I'll give
comments on the space.
out of the co-host so can vet, because I don't want anyone insane up, because we have this thing up, by the way. This is what people need to understand is if you want to come up here to try and pull some insane shit, like you look normal, you do everything normal, but then you come up and you say some absolutely insane shit, that is not acceptable, and we do not represent that. And we have every right to boot you, and no criticism will ever convince me otherwise of anything that I do. So screw you. Don't do that. Don't be destructive. Don't come up and say insane things. That tends to happen. That's why a lot of people don't open up their spaces shows as much. And even if they do, they have like these strict rules, and then they bring up people that talk for 2 minutes at a time. And that is that is very low signal, high noise. So that's why not many people actually use spaces to kind of like, bring information out there. Except I have seen people do it more frequently now because they've discovered, oh, we can actually host our own spaces and we can actually, really pull this off. Especially for some of the bigger accounts. It's great to see. So, Auda, do you see anyone in particular who might ask a good question or two? Or do we?
I think the guy that talked about how he was able to get by in Germany with just Arabic might be a good person to add.
Is he requesting?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Sure.
Also, I wanted to add, I think for me, when I realized that Europe's immigration policy was ridiculous, was when I saw people that were extremely successful, have run companies worth tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, struggle to immigrate to Europe with like a business plan. But they would let in like 500,000 people with no passport, no background check, nothing, with no problems. I think that's when I kind of realized that Europe's immigration policy was completely ridiculous.
Yeah. I began to saw economic collapse. That's where it became obvious to me. Because you can't lie. You can't lie about money. Like that's the thing. You can't print your way out of the problem. That's not how that works.
Yes, I remember specifically that Elon said one time that in science you cannot deny the truth, but in politics, truth is the first casualty. And then I responded that, yeah, that this is why this is why we have to fight to expose the truth again, because the truth is that even in politics, eventually the truth will come to light, and you cannot deny the truth anymore. You cannot trick yourself into believing you're a woman if you're actually a man forever. This, for example, it doesn't work. You cannot trick yourself into believing that a tyrannical state works against the people, because at some point people are going to realize that they feel trapped and they cannot pursue their dreams. This is something that I have noticed, which is extremely sad. I speak a lot to my best friend from Germany. I'm not going to mention her name because she's a completely private individual. She has X now, but she's the most anonymous person that you can be on X, and she only just recently joined it, even though she has been following my work for a long time. But she's actually not a political person, but she absolutely supports everything I do, and she listened to everything I told her. Like, we have a lot of conversations about everything. And for many years, she started studying psychology at university. And at first it was fine for her and she enjoyed it. She actually enjoyed it. She learned a lot. And now she aces all her exams because she is highly, highly intelligent. But suddenly this year, everything changed for her, because this year, German politics really started to add some additional speed to it, and just became more and more noticeable that she was stuck in this hamster wheel and couldn't escape the system. Suddenly the system didn't feel so comfortable anymore. The system is only comfortable because you feel like you're in a zoo, or you're in a big cage, and it's kind of fine because you get everything you need, but then suddenly you get a taste of freedom and you see what's actually out there, and then you want more of it. And she started to realize there's actually a whole world outside of this. She never traveled a lot in the past. She has never left Europe, actually. And suddenly she saw what the media told her about Donald Trump, for example. All of it had been a lie. And she became curious about it and wanted to see more of it. And then she started to notice how her parents were just suffering in a way without even realizing it, because they were just hustling all day long and still are every day, going to work, coming back tired. The parents are not at home the children are not at home anymore, so they don't have anyone to take care of. The entire life is just them working. That's what gives them some kind of purpose. But how is that really the purpose if the work they do isn't actually fulfilling for them? What I do right now, that's fulfilling, yeah, but they just have like standard 9-to-5 jobs. And she told her mother, why don't you do like part-time, for example, so you get to enjoy your life for a bit? And the mother didn't want to do it because she needed some kind of distraction from her real life, because in her real life she had nothing that gave her any value, any purpose. So her entire life had just become this routine. And the reason why is because we were pressured into establishing just this routine life in Germany. There's nothing outside of it that you can do. All you care about is how you separate the trash in Germany. And I'm not even joking. Like, separating the trash is a big deal in Germany. And the neighbors will snitch on you if you don't separate the trash accurately, because people don't have bigger things to discuss and worry about, apparently, because they just numb themselves. They distract themselves from all the bigger things that are going on, because they don't realize what they could have. They could have freedom. And once they got the taste of freedom and saw, for example, what's going on X, and Alice Weidel now having this conversation with Elon Musk, they got excited. That's why a lot of people are shifting, because they realized, oh, wow, we were trapped in our German bubble. And I'm here like, yes, this is why I've been doing this international work for the past months. You didn't trust me that there was a bigger world out there, but there is. And now I am bringing this world to you, and you can see it on your phone screen, basically by me telling you about it. And that inspires a lot of them to do the same thing and to verge into the world of what is actually possible. And yes, we have the potential in Germany to achieve the same thing, to implement these values of freedom, of just being lighthearted and having more conversations, because in Germany, a lot of people are very stiff. We can change all of that. We can be the change.
Weren't there also similar issues to the trash sorting with regards to air conditioning and the hot temperatures over the summer?
Air conditioning? What do you mean? We don't do that. We do lüften.
No,
That
no.
means
I think he
just
specifically means with the heating.
yes. I don't know what exactly the main issues this year were because I wasn't in Germany at that time, but I am aware that generally we typically don't. Do you mean in winter the
So
heating? Or
no,
what
There
exactly?
was
what I
this thing that
saw
happened a while
there was
ago.
a heat
Yeah.
wave
What
over the
happened?
summer, and people had some folks had acquired air conditioners for themselves to use, like little you can just plug them in and set them next
Oh,
to your
you meant
window.
that. Oh, sorry. I got confused there.
And they were getting ratted out by their fellow citizens, to my knowledge, for using air conditioning to stay cool in summertime. Sounds like the government just wants you to suffer.
I didn't know that, but it makes so much sense. That is such a German sentiment because in America everybody uses air conditioning. In Germany we don't do that. We do lüften, which means airing. So we just open the window fully. Stoßlüften. That's when we open like basically every door, every window for maybe 15 minutes, and that's how we get air in the house. And that's a very typical German thing. Like there are memes about it that we do this lüften. Our windows are different actually, like they are manufactured in a different way where you can slightly tilt them so that you just let in a tiny bit of air at the top, and that's what we call lüften or airing. So you just let in a bit of air, so we don't have air conditioning. So it's very possible that there's Germans who rat out their neighbors for using some kind of postmodern American air conditioning system.
By the way, we had the commenter up. Alibadi, is that your correct? Is that the correct name?
You got it right, sir, and thank you for giving me a mic. Yeah, I actually spent 6 months deployment in Germany, and
Oh wow!
I was in I was in Wiesbaden. Yeah, what I've noticed, and I traveled a lot in Germany, and the amount of illegals or immigrants, whatever the politically correct word we need to use today, it was enormous. Like I was able to actually go to some cities, and the influx of the Arab population over there is so massive. I was just able to actually get direction, do like buy stuff from the stores. Just speaking to them in Arabic. That's how much that of a problem, and it's affecting Germany. And when I attended the rally for the AFD in Wiesbaden, I got to speak to a lot of them, and very genuine people, and they're genuinely just concerned about their own country. I was like, hey, our values, our culture is deteriorating, and these people are basically costing us like a lot of money because they live on the social security benefits and stuff like that, and they work under the table so they don't pay taxes. It's a multifold issue, and I hope the AFD wins and deport majority of them and back, because what I've noticed, a lot of them from Syria and Palestine, from the dialect they speak, it's Levantine, and I speak Arabic Iraqi, and that's my origins, but I'm a U.S. citizen. And yeah, that's my 2 sentences, and I really hope to God the AFD wins. And thank you for giving me a mic, sir.
Nice.
How much of this issue would disappear if we just took away the welfare? If we can't live
Good
on the
question.
tax thing.
It will relieve a lot of economic issues. And also the housing cost will basically goes down because you reduce the demand.
So it'd be even better than deportation because what Naomi mentioned earlier was like, oh, hey, they're very comfortable in the system. So what if you just took away the welfare so they could work like everybody else? I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
if you look at
they'd leave.
if you look at like
I think
the UAE or Switzerland, they're in a significantly better position, specifically because they don't give as much support to foreigners. You know, you're kind of on your own.
Well, you can't get into UAE unless you have some type of legitimate visa. I've been to Dubai many times, and actually my aunt married to an Emirati guy, and she's been in there since '73. And That's one other thing. Is like the UAE immigration system. It's probably one of the one of the most strict in the globe. Like if you don't have a legitimate reason over there, they're not gonna allow you to go over there and work. I mean, you can go as a tourist, but that's a very limited. Like you can go in there for like a couple of weeks or so.
I've my family's lived in the UAE before. It is significantly easier in some ways than a lot of Western countries. You can get your you can get your permit to live there, and within like 2 weeks. But still, they manage to get everything sorted. Whereas if you do it in the U.S. or Europe, it could take months and months and months. And they clearly don't do as good of a job as the UAE.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the system at the time with your family. I don't know when they lived there, but uh, I mean, obviously the policies and laws they change periodically. So, and I honestly, and I still don't know what is current for the UAE right now. But I've been in there at least 5 times, and I was doing trainings with the Emirati special operations and stuff like that.
I think for it's more difficult for the average person, but if you're someone that's successful, it's they make it very easy.
Yeah, it's probably so. If your family actually business owners, you basically bring some benefit to the country. Yes, they will make it very easy for you.
Yes, my
That's very
my
true. Yeah.
criticism of Europe has mostly been that they make it extremely difficult for those people, and they make it very easy for people without passports for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been an issue in Europe for since 2014, or I guess the launch of ISIS, or whenever ISIS became a thing in 2012, and they started doing the mass migration for whatever globalist reasons. I mean, I know some of the things that mechanism going on behind the scene from the government perspective. Uh, we can discuss that in a maybe another space. But if you notice, Poland also, I did visit Poland last year as well. Actually, I didn't come back from Europe until late February this year. So I left last year and came back February this year. And when I went to Poland, they don't have these issues because they don't allow these non-documented immigrants. They actually did not allow anybody in, and they are economically in much better place than anybody else in Europe. And they do make it easy for business people to
Yes,
go over there and invest.
yeah, I've heard actually Poland is one of the easier places to immigrate if you have the resources in Europe.
And if you guys never been to Poland, it's a must visit. Go in the summertime because it gets pretty cold in the winter time, and it's actually one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to.
I think one of the sad things about Germany is kind of the brainwashing. Um, I know several people that went to Germany and started living there, and within a year, within 2 years, they've completely become like a robot, like just parroting whatever the German news tells them. It's kind of a very sad sight to see.
Yes, we actually have a significant number of veterans that lives in Germany after retirement, and uh, and I got to meet quite a bit of them. And same thing, they're completely NPCs. I mean, no disrespect to any veteran, but like, I mean, if you live in an area where you only get or exposed to one channel of information, and you start believing that, and that's just basically the human psyche. And if you don't have the mental will to actually deviate and start doing your own research and trying to figure out what's going on, because as soon as you take a second look, I mean, things doesn't add up, and that's when if people like mentally strong enough, and you can actually start seeing it was like, hey, these things doesn't add up. Let me actually start doing some research and get exposed to a different set of information or a different set of facts. Maybe there's something going on here. And that's when people like we start waking up to the government propaganda or majority of the U.S. Thank God to Elon Musk and I don't know how long you guys been active. I actually only became active. My account has been out there for quite a while, but I was just not active on social media due to my previous intelligence community job. And when I lost my job 2 weeks before the election, I got fired because of my politics, because of my MAGA stance. They went after me. And uh, so I started getting on X and try to reach out to other people and try to figure out if other people like have the same issues as I had. And yeah, there's quite a bit of veterans and federal employees and stuff like that. They have similar issues. And in a couple of months, I guess my account grew from, I guess, 10 followers to almost 5,000 right now. And I'm trying to grow a network because I can put informations out there for the public to actually get exposed to, and they don't have to basically rely just on the mainstream media. And I'll rest my case. I don't want to hijack the conversation. If you guys have questions, I'm more than willing to answer.
Yeah, it's great to have you. It's funny because with me it was kind of a similar thing. I created my account in 2021, and wasn't active on it until at least 23. And so I did this specifically because of the politics on the platform at the time. You know, it was still Twitter back then. And so if you posted anything that was slightly out of line, you know, especially even if it's actual scientific analysis, this is like more so concerns COVID, right? So, you know, if you were to post anything that somewhat criticizes a assertion, which is ironic because then if you are to say, look at science, the concept of science is to question a lot of things. It's a good thing to question science because then you can validate whether or not the science is in fact scientific. That's the scientific process, effectively, or part thereof. So if you don't allow that to happen, then science is no longer science, then it's just basically religion, all right? So if you went against the religion of certain things, then you basically were deplatformed. So, you know, based on that, I just decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm just not going to say anything at all. And just kind of use it to observe things. Some people would say things, but then they would get banned like, you know, a day or a week after, which is very interesting to see. That's why I continued not to say anything and just sit there and watch. And I've been watching for a very long time. So, you know, you get to see a lot of things. And yeah, I mean, just become active on X, start posting good stuff and interact with people that are here. And, you know, if you are a very mimetic individual, because that's what it's all about, then you will amass a following perhaps, or you'll just be a, you know, somewhat present part of present, you know, element of a community, which is really, really cool. So yeah, I'd highly recommend more people just become active on X. Like, get out there, it's the world. But yeah, thanks for coming, man. It's a great insight. And also thanks for the subscription, by the way. That's nice.
John has his hand up.
Yep. John, what's up?
Can I ask about George Soros?
Nah, I don't really want to talk about that so much. We want to talk about like current issues and how to solve them. And like, look, we can talk about what everybody talks about, which is that. So we can beat like zombie horses. We can talk about zombie horses. I don't want to talk about zombie horses here. You got anything else in particular?
Well, I was specifically curious about it with relation to the AFD, but it's fine. I don't have to say it.
All right. So maybe if we could get a few others up as well, I suppose. Ouda, do you see anything?
I don't see anyone really interesting.
Naomi, what do you think? Shall we perhaps conclude the space? Because I think we've kind of touched on almost every single topic, unless you believe something was left untouched. We could address that as well. But other than that, I think it was a very great after space. So what do you think? We shut it down and then resume with the conversation in a few hours? I think Naomi's muted.
What do you think is rotting the culture of countries? Because, right, it's if you look at German culture, it's rotted significantly in the last 20 years, but you can't say it's only a trend that's happening in Germany or even the first world countries. It's also happening in a lot of third world countries as well.
It's the
I
lack
mean,
of
well, you have
courage. That's the problem. Lack of courage, honor, religion, and principles. That's it. Like the ability to stick with principles. Without that, you'll have absolute chaos. Religion, I think, is hearing like audio. Without religion, you sometimes have, let's say, okay, so, the bell curve example is saying, okay, here we have a bunch of people that could probably reinforce principles within themselves. Okay, but many of them can't. So you have religion to address the majority of the bell curve, I think. So with that, as people are losing faith in faith itself, I think that can cause a lot of chaos. That, I think, is what religion was really for, is to create a sense of order. And so as soon as that falls apart, I mean, look, I don't know many people who are fundamentally atheistic that are stable individuals with principles, because they would have this idea of saying nothing is real, nothing really exists, or nothing really matters, and so they'll do anything to get by effectively, which is a very, very strange position to have in life, because everything matters.
I think also you have to be kind of mentally ill to believe there's like no creator whatsoever. Like at least like maybe you can argue, okay, we live in a simulation created by a group or people or something like that, or maybe you believe in God, or I don't know, like there's a lot of beliefs, right? I know like Elon thinks we're likely in a simulation, and there's some evidence to kind of point to that, but like the idea that everything is just created by chance is somewhat ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, with regards to the question about how we got where we are, I do think it is really important to look at the issue of immigration and migration, and to look at like all of the ways that people have been displaced and put in situations that push them to the West, and how that causes tension. I think that's important to look at. I think it's also important to like take a step back and look at the big picture and ask like whose interest, like who benefits the most from all of that, and just to ask those questions and think about what forces might be at play here.
Yeah. I think specifically it's the woke mind virus that has caused a lot of damage, because the mind virus is like the absence of courage as well. It tends to look at things from I'm going to care more about the optics of a thing than the consequence of a thing. That is a major problem, because that's not real. What's real is consequence. The optics, they may lead to consequence sometimes, but that consequence, ironically enough, most of the time is something that is far different from what the optics actually are. It's like a stage where you look at the world and you say, it looks like it's real. Like, for instance, this city front is probably real, and this stage of a movie set. But realistically, it's just a bunch of papier-mâché, and there's some timber behind that is loosely holding it up. That's kind of what the woke mind virus is. It makes very beautiful papier-mâché that is worth nothing and melts in the rain.
I saw this image of Poland, and it was like showing like the percentage of like Polish people who were like Christian under communism, and which is like ideology that's like atheistic, doesn't believe in a god, versus like the percentage of Poland living now that are Christian, and it's like decades of communism couldn't do the damage that liberalism has done to Christianity has in like a few decades.
Yeah. But somebody made an interesting reply. I was like, what would be so terrible to have a decreasing population in Germany? The country would be much nicer in almost every aspect with only 50 million people instead of 85. What do you think? No. You need more people in the world, not less, because that's really what matters. You say, okay, we have to decrease population. Why? There's no logical argument as to why. Every single argument are just it's just made up of talking points, and those talking points, if you really were to look at them, are all bullshit.
Not to mention, your entire country is going to be made up of fossils.
Yep. But like, what do you want? The age of the robots? I mean, sure, cool. You're gonna have more robots for sure. That's gonna happen anyways. But you know, you're still gonna have people, and you're still going to need people, because without people, you just have nothing new.
You need young people. The problem with an aging population and a decreasing population is that it's going to be old people who are not productive whatsoever, and they're just leeching off the resources of the country.
Besides, I mean, look at the technologies that we all wield here today, which I'm pretty sure most of us enjoy quite a lot and couldn't even imagine life without at this point. That was all created by new minds. You need new minds because they may create something that is miraculous in nature. And the more people there are, the more of a chance you'll have for that occurring. Your geniuses are rare, especially successful geniuses. And that is because, you know, like, okay, cool. If we have an increasing population, then there'll also be an increased chance of geniuses, because that's something that you'll need. You'll need this because then you'll have an even better world, because those people, if they be courageous, will take responsibility and shape the world into something remarkable and very comfortable even for many. Because I don't believe in burning. Like I vehemently disagree with people that believe in burning systems down. I think that's a very stupid take. Like there's this people say, oh, break the matrix. They look at this, they look at the world and say, okay, we're going to use the allegory that is the matrix. We're going to use the Matrix movies as a way to explain that it's a simulation. And you're going to say, let's break that simulation. That's how they look at it. It's not a matrix from a perspective of something that is, you know, negative, because some people use that as an argument as well. Matrix is something that is political in nature and just kind of controls things. Then there's also the people that think about it in actual systemic manner, the systemic manner being something that is almost simulation-like in nature. And so this type of thing, when people say break it, it's remarkably stupid because you're in it. You're actually benefiting off of it. It's not about breaking that system. It's about shaping that system into doing something better. It's all just a tool. You could say, for instance, take a chisel, and if you use it to I don't know, to kill people, then you're going to use it to kill people. It doesn't mean that the chisel is bad. It just means that the person that's using it is bad, right? So if you would say even a car is the same thing. A car itself is an amazing tool that gets you from point A to point B. But if you have someone like a terrorist inside of it, it turns into a weapon, right? The same thing also applies to, say, systems that exist in the world. You shouldn't destabilize these systems. You shouldn't burn these systems. You make it better. That's the idea. This is also another thing that I think has taken over many countries, especially developing countries. They're like, oh, down with the system, this, that, this, that. I'm like, you can't even fucking clean up your room. Your opinion literally doesn't matter. I'm sorry. But like, that is ridiculous. If you can't even manage your own life, how can you manage any aspect of the world around you? It's a huge thing. It's a thing that people should really ask themselves. Like, you know, you cannot manage your own life. How can you manage the world? How should you even be able to think about how to manage the world? And why do you keep advocating for the destabilization and destruction of certain systems, the systems, by the way, which work massively in your own interest? You know, some systems these days, that is not the case, of course. I'm not saying that they're perfect, actually far from it. And that's why they need to be reshaped, because at the moment they don't actually work in the benefit of most people, but they can work in the benefit of most people. So you'd have to discuss how to shape these things instead of just saying, "Ooh, Hulk smash," you know, because that's what most people do, which is a big problem. And it's also part of this woke culture, you know, defund the police, all this kind of nonsense, put laws into place, get rid of other laws that you should actually have in their place, you know, be lax on those laws, more crime, more chaos, more death, more destruction, more tragedy. That's what comes of it. It's a fundamentally illogical thing. Doesn't make any sense to me. Shape systems, make better, don't destroy. Anyone can destroy. Destroying is really fucking easy. Building things or shaping things, that's the hard part. That's why nobody wants to do it. Because brain hurt.
Yeah, can I jump in pretty quick again and
Sure.
kind of like about the woke mind virus? When the whole LGBTQIA plus DWYZ and start like going on full throttle within the federal government, I start noticing all them moms and some of the dads, like on the liberal side, they start forcing their kids to transition just to be part of the club, and so they can have the rainbow flag or whatever flag version uh, uh, on their desk just to basically virtue signal. And it's gone bad, and they start changing the what we call it computer-based training. It's a yearly refresher trainings, and they start adding new additional trainings just to accommodate those guys. And I'm like, come on, man, can we just like focus on the mission? We got like bad guys out there we're trying to chase, and you're like subjugating me to do some stupid computer training about how to not hurt somebody's feelings. I was like, if you can't be like if you're not emotionally strong to be in the any of the intelligence community, you should not be there at all. Because some of the stuff you get exposed to is not going to be easy, and is going to destroy you emotionally. So it is real, the Wokeman virus, and I thank Elon Musk for uh, I guess creating, I guess, the term, and now we can probably push back and trying to put an end to it, because with that type of mentality, humanity is not going to advance. But matter of fact, is going to be reduced to ashes if we keep allowing these people to hijack every policy, every conversation, and yeah. So hey, stay strong and focus on the main mission, and the mission is to advance humanity, not to reduce it to ashes.
Exactly.
I like my case.
And I think a lot of these policies, as a matter of fact, and all this weird virtue signaling, that has really damaged a lot of those people. Like, say, for instance, I know a lot of gay people, and it's never really been an issue at all. I didn't even care. That's the funniest part. Like, I wouldn't even notice. I'd be doing like work, just general fucking things, and everything's nice. And then, at some point, you'd be asking like, hey man, by the way, you got a significant other or something, and then it would turn out, oh yeah, by the way, I'm gay. I'm like, oh, interesting. I didn't even know that. So there was never a problem. This was never a problem for me personally, or I didn't even see this ever be brought up as a problem at any point until all this weird virtue signaling nonsense started. All this weird identity politics. And this has kind of like gripped every single country on Earth, some more so than others. And there are a few, I think, that remain perhaps as well, but not for long, because this will sweep as a wave across many other countries. You could just hope that, some of the countries will experience a relatively dissipated wave of it and be able to fight it off, because if it gets in, then it basically destroys everything. Because I think now so more than ever, if you're a gay or if you're transgender or anything, you're more targeted than ever before, thanks to this exact nonsense. Nobody cared before, or at least I didn't know many people that cared. It wasn't really a focus for discussion. It was just a thing that existed out there, and that's it. They're like, oh, interesting, that's a little different, okay. But now it's a huge thing. It's politicized to no end. I think that's a problem.
First of all, sorry that I was gone for a while. I had a bit of a family emergency, but it's all good now. But that's a good point you're making, which is exactly why I think it's very interesting that Alice Weidel is the complete opposite of all of that, because she's a woman, she's gay, she's married to a woman who's an immigrant woman, and they have kids together, they're raising kids together. So someone like Hitler, for example, would not be too fond of that if he found out that this is allegedly the Nazi party. But interestingly, the mainstream media, they never made a big deal out of it. Like, they never announced her as obviously the gay woman who is becoming the chancellor candidate, because it would look bad for them, because they are the ones who are constantly virtue signaling for these identity politics. And Alice Weidel says,
funny.
I am not queer. Do not call me queer, because I'm not queer. I'm a lesbian woman, but it's not something that I make a big deal out of, because that's not how I make politics. And
That
that's
is
how it
actually
should
fascinating. I didn't know that. I didn't actually know that. That's interesting. See, it doesn't have to be an issue, and I don't think it is an issue. Damn, kind of to prove a concept, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought that's super interesting to find out that it's not common knowledge, because in Germany it's kind of common knowledge, but it's like every now and then you get reminded of it, and then you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's actually crazy. Yeah, she's actually a lesbian woman who's married to an immigrant woman, and they are raising children together. Her wife is not often in public. However, none of anything that Alice Weidel has ever said in her speeches had to do with her personal life, because she keeps her personal life completely out of politics. And she's extremely eloquent, and she's extremely knowledgeable, and more of an autistic nerd on economics and At the same time, she also has some very emotional speeches. For example, at the Magdeburg speech after the Christmas market attack, she said, "I never want to have to stand next to another mother who lost her child to one of these attacks, and I want to make sure that this never happens again," which moved a lot of Germans. So the only authentic politics that you see comes from the AfD. That's very true, and this is why we are winning right now, because social media has become so much more powerful. And in the past, people would just watch the mainstream media, but watching the mainstream media is like almost like watching a satirical show. Like, it's completely fake. Even watching the mainstream media, it feels like satire. It feels like a parody of itself at this point. It's just everything is so staged, which is why precisely the mainstream media, the tax-funded mainstream media, now want to sound more appealing to the general audience and to the younger audience as well. And they're just failing. First thing they did was scratch the ladies and gentlemen at the start because they want to be more inclusive.
That is actually funny. That reminds me of something. When I saw the whole topic heating up a bunch, I think a few weeks in, almost like a month at this point. And I saw I think I saw the foreign minister actually post something on X, and somebody was posting something beneath that, effectively criticizing what she said. And that was like so ironic. Somebody else jumped in on that and says, Deutsche Realsatire, meaning like basically German reality satire. I think it was kind of funny.
Oh, did it have to do with Annalena Baerbock?
Yes.
She's the best for making fun of. So our minister for foreign affairs, she is. I like to describe her as German Kamala Harris because she stumbles over her words. She's extremely incompetent when it comes to giving speeches, and she does it in a way where she messes up certain phrasings and idioms. And what did she say, for example? She wanted to say it was an unprecedented attack, something like that. She said it was an unpresidential attack.
Oh.
It was hilarious.
As a foreign minister, oh, God, help me. If I was a politician, I made that kind of blunder, Jesus Christ, I'd be in a room for 10 to 15 minutes going, what the fuck did I do? And then issue an apology. By the way, sorry. It would be even endearing if you
I
had
just
an
wanted to say
apology.
she faked her CV. She faked everything about her entire identity, so it makes sense how she got into the position that she achieved. I mean, often when you look at these politicians, you just wonder how can they be making so much money for the IQ that they probably have.
Honestly,
that
is fascinating. It's a fascinating situation, man. Realistically, it's fascinating to see. If anything, it's like horrifying, of course, but like it is to an extent fascinating. Yeah, that something like this is real is insane. Like I always say, wicked, man, absolutely wicked.
Make politicians intelligent again. That's seriously something we need. And then they attack someone like Donald Trump in the media and say he's stupid. It's
like he's literally a businessman.
You just fail at recognizing intelligence. That's just you're not stupid. You're retarded or maybe even subtarded.
I think the problem of not being able to recognize intelligence comes from the fact that everything that's presented to you by the media is actually fundamentally unintelligent. That is a bit of a problem. So you recognize the unintelligent thing as if it was the intelligent thing, which it's not. I mean, like you're presented all these weird people and celebrities and whatnot as somehow super intelligent beings. I'm like, actually, no.
The experts. Listen to the experts. Follow the science.
Yeah, follow the science set by an actor. I'm like, I enjoy the movies, like the actors themselves. I mean, hey, great, good for them. They have an incredible skill. They are specialists in a field, and that field is to pretend to be something that they're not, which is exactly what that is, to be a character, right? That's their entire purpose, and it's an amazing thing. They do a tremendous good job, to borrow something from Donald Trump. They do a tremendous good job at that. But it doesn't really make them a figure that should have, that creates an opinion I can take seriously, because I'm like, if you're so good at playing a character, how am I sure that you're not playing one right now? And if you're a specialist, that would mean that you're very targeted towards one specific thing. So if you want to target something so general, I in good conscience cannot and should not take you seriously.
I actually just saw someone just commented a correct quote from this Annalena Baerbock, Minister for Foreign Affairs woman. One time she said, and this is like a very famous meme at this point in Germany. She said, "Bacon of hope," a bacon of hope.
Wait, did she actually say that?
She actually said it.
Bacon of hope. You know, it's funny. I'm German myself, and I had to learn English practically on my own. Nobody taught me this, really. I just learned it through, watching documentaries and TV shows and interacting with people on the internet. How is it that the foreign minister has worse English than I did as a kid at age 10? What the fuck?
Yeah, especially as a minister for foreign affairs, shouldn't you be?
I mean, maybe I am
be
cracked. I
capable of
understand.
being
Maybe I'm not a
involved
good
in
example,
international
but
politics? You should be capable of being involved in international politics as the Minister for Foreign Affairs, I would assume, and that takes a certain language skill. Like, what are you going to do with German in America or in, I don't know, anywhere else?
I mean, I understand, like, you could be more German focused and have an interpreter with you because, I do understand that. But, like, if you're going to speak another's language, you best make sure that you do so in as skilled a manner as possible. Because if you don't, that's going to make you seem very incompetent to the country whose language you're speaking.
That's very true. Which is one of my nitpicky criticisms about the space between Alice Weidel and Elon Musk today. And Alice Weidel did a great job, to be honest, like talking about quite complex issues for that level of complexity. I think her English was totally fine. It's just thinking about the fact that I know how she speaks in her actual speeches and how incredibly eloquent she is in the German language. It's just very hard to convey in the English language, where clearly her level of competence is like 2 degrees below that, maybe, or 2 levels below it. Which is it does make a big difference for someone who already knows what she's capable of. And she still did a great job. It's just the potential would have been different if she either had some sort of. I mean, the problem with an interpreter is that then you can't have the direct conversation. So there was no perfect way to figure this out in the end. She got more comfortable though after a while. I think it was a very awkward beginning, but then after a while they got more comfortable with each other, and it. Some people called her out, especially in Germany, that she acted like a fangirl and she embarrassed herself a bit. I don't think so. I think it was an interesting conversation. It was interesting that she had some extraordinary questions. Certainly, I do believe that the focus should have been on some additional questions that could be impactful for the upcoming elections. But still, it was interesting to see her for how she really is and which topics she is potentially interested in as a person herself. Some others have also criticized, for example, she confessed to being agnostic, which is just adds additionally to her entire resume of her being gay, lesbian, which same thing, lesbian, married to an immigrant woman, raising children, and she's agnostic. She's not even a Christian. How dare she? Potentially she lost a few Christians there. I'm not so sure how big of an impact that has, but I do know that some Germans are very conservative about it. But it was an interesting discussion, to say the least.
Hey,
Yeah, another problem
hey,
with German is the fact, actually any language, is the fact that you have to use a completely different style when speaking it. So like the way that you speak English and the way you speak German are somewhat similar because they kind of have similar origins as a language, but realistically they have different patterns by the way of how you like string sentences together. That's why whenever you like hear broken English, it's actually very interesting because it gives you insight into how exactly this person's language functions because of the way that they like to string words they understand together. So with English, it's very, very different. And especially if you'd like to use, words which are, hint at you being eloquent in English, it requires you to approach it from a far different, kind of angle, right? So a lot of the knowledge that you'd have access to as, your German setting, if you wanted to think of it that way, you may not have access to if you try to do English. So you'd actually have to use English quite a lot, which, if you're German and you're a German politician, I'd imagine you're not really going to do that much, which is a bit of a problem. So all things considered, to have someone who so eloquently speaks the way they do, as someone who frequently speaks German, it's like, that is very impressive. What you do is very impressive.
Yes, indeed. I can guarantee you that, not to be like an imposter, but I'm a different person in German. I think about this sometimes when I see myself like in videos, interviews, for example. Sometimes I give interviews in German, like especially recently, I had a lot of German media reach out to me, and sometimes I give some video interviews as well. And I do feel like a different person sometimes, and I'm not different. I'm not acting like someone I'm not. It's simply the connotations behind words and the way you string sentences in order to be eloquent in English is very different from German. And I think I can break it down to you in a way that is like, the English language is way more simple, but it's like Lego pieces. So you have millions and millions of tiny Lego pieces, but you can build something very complex with it. And then if you take the German language, that's a more sophisticated language simply by default. So you can use more common German words and very simply string them into a more eloquent sentence if you know how to use them appropriately, which is why colloquial German often sounds quite ridiculous, because often you automatically implement some more eloquent terms in there, and then it almost sounds like a parody of itself. So colloquial German, I personally do not like at all. I don't like it because it sounds staged, it sounds pretentious in a way. But that's why I like the English language for being able to play around with it so much. Because it's like lots of tiny puzzle pieces that you can fit together in many different ways, or like Lego pieces. And then in German, it's beautiful if you discover the vast vast vocabulary that we have available, because everything is like a little art piece that you string together. That's how I personally see the German language. That's why, for example, I'm a big fan of Faust, Goethe's Faust, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Great literature. That's my personal favorite. I could discuss that all day long on an additional space. Nobody cares. That's my autistic niche interest. And at the same time, I like Shakespeare, for example, too. I like a lot of English literature. I like what both languages are capable of, and I'm very grateful to have been born German. I used to not appreciate it. I seriously have to tell you that I used to not appreciate my German heritage, because when I grew up, I didn't recognize my culture, because that's just what we are taught in Germany, is that we don't have a culture, truly. It's just, I guess, like leather pants, the lederhosen, and maybe a pretzel, and that's German culture. But that's not true. We have so much beautiful history. Yes, history too, not just the dark history, and culture, and just a lot of stuff to offer in our past, in terms of just thought leaders, and we have been on the front lines of development, innovation, literature, art, everything. So yeah, to forget all of that, or rather to disavow it, is and condemn it even, is very sad. And now I am very proud of. I don't know if proud is the right word. Maybe because I am not responsible for Albert Einstein or Goethe's achievements, but I'm very grateful to be German and to have explored that part of my culture, the same way that I'm very grateful that I got access to the German and international culture. Now I can interact with so many people. Like how this whole thing started, how I got any sort of recognition this year on X, last year on X, was actually me getting involved with Brazil. Once the Brazil controversy escalated on X, that's when I first started involving myself, because I just saw it and thought it was interesting. And then I looked into it, and I was like, wow, there's so many parallels between between the Brazilian elections and January 6th in America and January 8th in Brazil. Most people who are listening to this space are probably not necessarily aware of it. But there's been so many connections between America and the recent years and the past president of Brazil, Bolsonaro, he's very similar to Trump, and he went through exactly the same timeline as Donald Trump just 2 years later. And they wanted to put him in prison after an alleged attempted coup of people storming the Capitol. And that really makes you think, because it is also well known that the CIA got involved with the Brazilian elections. And that makes you think again. So maybe the Capitol storm in America wasn't such a coincidence either. And I'm saying all this while, after we just discussed, Adrian, that potentially the mainstream media may be listening. So take something from what I just said.
Yeah. There's a lot of good history. It's important to recognize that as well. I think a lot of the focus is on the dark history, and I think there's merit to a certain extent there for sure. But, given that we should never forget history, of course, but we should also not forget the good parts of it either. Because if we do, then more bad things will happen than good things. And that I think is a problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to drop. I need to go to the grocery store, and I'll join in if you guys are still online.
Yes. Actually, I think it would be great time to conclude the space as well, because we have, many of us have some other stuff that we'd like to do, and we also have a show that is separate from this. This is more of a recap as well as just a general discussion. So, yeah, cool stuff. Pretty awesome.
I very much enjoyed it. By the way, first of all, thank you, Adrian, for starting this space, because I messaged him immediately after the main space with Alice Weidel, saying it would be such a cool opportunity to start a space now. But I'm too nervous, I'm too self-conscious to start my own space. I've never done it before, and I know that Adrian is the best at starting spaces. And all of you should attempt to tune into the conversation spaces that he does regularly, probably tonight as well.
Oh, yeah,
if you still have the energy, I will be there probably as well. Because the conversation, I said that to him yesterday, that is basically peak autism, and it's amazing because we just have lighthearted conversations about anything and everything. There's no specific topic. We keep it light. We keep it fun. We have some great speakers on there. Some additional friends that we haven't seen here in this space yet. So you may want to come as well and introduce yourself to them. So then we can expand our audience on the conversation spaces as well.
Exactly. Well, anyways, thank you all for coming. This was absolutely great. This was an awesome space. If we ever have spaces like these in the future, it'd be great if we get more German people in as well, because, I'd like it for more German people to be on X. Because many of them would be missing out. And I'd hope also that people are not affected, or at least do not allow themselves to be affected by social stigmas. For instance, for quite a while, autism, for instance, or Asperger's in general, as it used to be called, it was changed at some point because of its history. This used to have a massive stigma attached to it, and still to a certain extent does. But now you get to see the brilliance of it, which is nice, and people are embracing it and are becoming much more capable than they've ever had before, which is amazing. So I think that in a sense, looking at it this way as well, don't buy into stigmas, look at logic, look at reason, and look at merit, and do your own research and ask yourself, is this really true? Is this really this, or is it really that? And whatever you do, you cannot listen to anything that the media outputs, because it's mostly bullshit. Some of it is actually true, but it's muddled with lies. So it could just be effectively a lie to a certain extent. Get a good source of information. There's many good sources of information on here. I'll add, if there's any good, German citizen journalists, I'll add them to my news list. I have a news list. You can check out the list on my profile, and you can then follow that list, and you'll get practically, journalists from all across the world, various many different backgrounds, truly independent media there, because this place, X.com, is where the media is at, and you are the media. We are the media. All of us are, whenever we want to be.
Can you maybe put another post up in the space? I don't know how that works, because then I can actually show you some citizen journalists from Germany right now and put them in, and then we can organize a space with them, because 100% I know they would be very interested in joining us. I would just have to tell them. I know that they are already excited about joining the international sphere. We just
Awesome.
need to
Yeah,
have
I'd love
some
to be the
sort
medium
of,
for that. Yeah, we can have a
yeah.
conversation about that, kind of put it together. I'll add them to the list. And
Mhm.
yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, let's organize probably like in a week or so, whichever, is best. Yeah.
Excellent.
Excellent.
We'll organize it.
Cool. Well, thank you all for coming. Catch me again in a few hours. I will start in, what is it? 3 hours or so, actually 2.5 hours. I will start a space. I will keep that space open for, I think, maybe 3 or 4 hours. We'll have a show 3 or 4 hours. Then I will do a bit of a live stream because I promised people I'd do a live stream. I was asking my subscribers, if you subscribe to me, you have like exclusive access to some posts that many others do not see. And so I basically asked, should I play PoE 2? And everyone's like, yes. I'm like, okay, cool. I guess I'm doing that today. So yeah, we'll have it go for, a few hours, and then I'll transition into a live stream. We'll play some PoE 2. You can chat with me there as well. If you're subscribed, you have access to the chat, and I will read your messages and answer as much of that as I can. Please don't be abusive about it too, because there's no real moderation there. So if you wanted to put bullshit in there, you actually could, but just please don't. I'm asking you, just don't. And if you do, then I'm gonna have to block you because I just can't, right? So anyways, thank you all for coming. It's absolutely amazing. By the way, keep in mind that I am in fact not Elon Musk. Nobody here think that I'm Elon, okay? Because if you do, that is just wrong. I'm Adrian Dittmann. I'm my own person. I'm independent from all of this. I have no political affiliations either. I deal mainly just with tech, by the way. So this is kind of like outside of my niche, but in my niche at the same time because it deals with information transmission. So it's like, okay, cool. This is how it is. Right? So I'm just kind of like this thing above the PSYOP layer. I will criticize anyone and everything, and it doesn't matter. So anyway. Let's see what else there. Okay, cool. Anyways, thank you all for coming. See you in a few hours.